After the release of the F1 movie, I saw a little bit of a debate swirl on Twitter about this movie and where its ranking is amongst the best of the motorsport genre. It is quite a thin genre considering how cinematic it can be at times. Today, I'm here to talk about my 5 favorite films within the genre, so let's get into it. Okay, I have put F1 at number 5 as the 5th best movie in the motorsport genre. I think in terms of capturing racing, it would be a lot higher on this list. I think the way that it utilizes its innovative cinematography to capture racing and the speed and physicality of motorsport is unlike anything we've seen before in a movie. I had the privilege of seeing this in an IMAX theater, and it was glorious seeing those scenes. The final sequence is absolutely breathtaking and mesmerizing and just captures the beauty of motorsport in all of its essence. Unfortunately, I think the narrative lets this one down a lot, and to the point where it lets the film down a little bit and feels very corny at times. I think the final scene of this movie especially is something that I joke about a lot now. And I think purists, in terms of fans of Formula One, get a little bit annoyed about some of the ways that it approaches explaining the sport of Formula One. But honestly, as a whole, it is one of those movies that is so much fun, has such great sequences, that you can ignore a lot of its flaws and just roll with the punches and have a great time with it. And that's really what this is. I did want this to be a lot higher on this list before going into seeing the movie, so I was a little bit disappointed there. But number 5, in terms of being the best of all time in this genre, is very high praise. And I think this film is pretty great all in all. Number 4, I have Pixar's Cars, because it's fucking Cars. Of course it's going to be on this list. This film is a Pixar classic. It was a film that I was raised on as a child. I really loved motorsport as a kid, and I've really started to get back into it again over the past year or two, and it's been just such a joyous time. And Cars just takes me back to that time when I would just put this on as a comfort watch over and over and over again. And I think a lot of you out there had a similar experience with this movie. There's so many iconic characters. I mean, Lightning McQueen is one of Pixar's best characters. Radiator Springs and the world that is created here is just so joyous and wonderful. And rewatching this recently, the film holds up so much to this day. And there is a really great message about sportsmanship, which has not really been utilized very frequently since this film. I think the message that this instows on children and the way that you approach sport the right way is an incredible message that is all throughout Cars. And it's just a great film. It's wonderfully animated. Can't say the same about the greatness in the second film, but this first one is just such a blast. At 3, I have Michael Mann's Ferrari. This was a recent one, and not one that I would expect to put on this list, because in some ways I think of this film a little bit differently to some of the others in this list, because it plays more like a straight drama than a sports movie, although it does have plenty of racing sequences. Getting to understand a little bit more about Enzo Ferrari's life and the way that Ferrari was built to be the juggernaut it is now is very interesting, and just getting to know a little bit more about the crazy life that this man led in terms of romance, the way that his relationship with his wife is completely broken down, and then seeing the way that he fully commits into motorsport, is willing to lose everything to make it work, just shows the true passion behind motorsport that Enzo Ferrari once had. I think Adam Driver plays it extremely well. I think Adam Driver is one of the best actors working, and he does a great job in this film. I think the drama is interesting. It can be a little soap opera-y with Penelope Cruz, but Penelope Cruz is also phenomenal in this movie. And this really goes and takes some twists and turns that I was not expecting. Ferrari gets unbelievably tragic in its third act and captures some horrific events in brutal fashion. And that sequence that plays in that third act was something that will always stick in my mind in terms of an almost iconic scene in the motorsport genre, no matter how tragic it is. The racing is captured so well. I think there's a really great use of close-ups and putting you in the car and giving you a true understanding of why Enzo Ferrari is passionate about these cars and making them to be as quick as possible around a track. It's just a really well done drama that I would definitely rewatch again. It's a great film for adults. At 2, I have Gran Turismo. Now, I think technically a lot of you might not even have this movie on the list at all. I know it got very mediocre reviews, but this film holds a very special place in my heart because I have studied the game extensively to the point where I was writing an honors thesis about this game and the way it translates into real life sport, and seeing the links that are formed between this game and motorsport are very real, and there's a lot of data that shows that this game is very highly effective, and many sim races are so highly effective in getting a driver used to the speed and the reflexes you need to have in a car before they get into a car and put themselves into a dangerous situation. The film definitely does have its corny moments. It's not always the most well written, but in terms of capturing Jan's story, which is one that I also studied extensively before this movie came out, I think it does it a lot of justice and is really well done. Yes, they do change some aspects and elements of this movie and rearrange some events to make it more cinematic and play like a drama, but it all works, I think. And I think Neil Blomkamp was a great director for this movie. The way that he captures machinery in all of his movies is very unique to him, and he does a great job of that in Gran Turismo. The way that he incorporates the game and fuses that with real life motorsport, the way that that's visualized, I think, is so fascinating and works to the benefit of the movie. I do like all the performances here. And once again, another movie that gets surprisingly tragic. And if you know about Jan's story, you know what's coming, but it does highlight the dangers of motorsport. But it also, once again, shows that really excellent link between the beauty of Gran Turismo, the video game, and how that links to real life motorsport. I think it's a great story, and it's a film that I have rewatched a few times, and I have had a great time doing so. But the film that I 100% believe is the best film about motorsport, no questions asked, and when people started saying F1 the movie is perhaps the greatest film about the sport of racing, I was like, bro, have you seen Ford v Ferrari? Because that is so clearly the best film in this genre. James Mangold, perhaps his best film. I absolutely adore this movie. It's such a heart-pumping, adrenaline-filled film that gives you everything that you want. It has top-tier performances from Christian Bale and Matt Damon, working within this great underdog story, a very American story about Ford and trying to beat the dynasty of Ferrari is very interesting and is something that you can really appreciate as it slowly starts to work towards the 24 hours of Le Mans race, which is such a physical and mental endurance test for any driver that undertakes it. A race that goes for literally 24 hours where they have to swap drivers overnight so they can get some sleep and hop back in the car. It takes up so much of your concentration, and only one mistake is all that's needed to completely derail this race. And Mangold does a great job of showcasing what's at stake for Ford if they mess this race up. And then once it gets there, that final 40 minutes is some of the best racing action you could ever watch in a film. It is so terrific in terms of capturing that tension, showcasing how if something goes wrong with the brake or the tires or anything, it can really mess up the entire race. Showcasing why we should support Christian Bale's Ken Miles is so well done. Having some nice scenes with him and his son played by Noah Jupe, it is building to this love letter to racing, and the way that this race plays out and what happens at the very end is almost enough to sink your heart, but it just works so well within an underdog sporting genre. And the fact that it played out in real life like this just puts light on this story and makes you want to dive into it more. This is a movie that you could put on at any time and I would just sit there and watch it and lock in for the entire duration of this movie, which is not a short movie. It's about 2.5 hours long, but it is an exhilarating 2.5 hours. I have always had such a blast with this movie and will continue to do so. And if you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor and check it out because it is excellent. And that's why this film is at number 1. And that's my ranking for my picks for the 5 greatest films about motorsport. I'd love to see your list in the comments below. Let me know. And if you have any recommendations, leave them in the comments below. There are a couple of films that I have seen as well that I didn't include on this list, but were right there. Ones like Rush and even Talladega Nights, which is a pretty fun comedy. But if there's any other recommendations that you may have, please let me know. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.